Alright, so we're going to talk about finding the percent of a number. Just a few reminders from the past couple of days. We can't do operations with percents. We have to change them to decimals or fractions first. Alright, so something we might not know is the word of means to multiply. The word is means equals. And we've seen that we can set these problems up as proportion problems, or we can set it as an equation. And I'm going to show you how to do both today. Alright, so let's look at our first example. Find the percent of the number 30% of 50. Before you work it out, translate it. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about of. Okay, 30% we need to change to a decimal. So when we change 30% to a decimal, we have to move our decimal point 2 places to the left. So 30% is the same thing as 0.3 or 0.30. Now on the previous page, I showed you that of is another way to multiply. And then we have 50. 50 is going to stay the same. Okay? So 30% of 50. When we multiply 0.3 times 50, we get 15. So 30% of 50 is equal to 15. Now a way to set this up as a proportion is to think is over of. We don't know what the number is, but we do know of 50. So we're trying to find out what this number is. What is 30% of 50? Now remember, when we write percents, it's the percent over 100, okay? Because the whole amount is 100. So then if we write our proportion, we cross multiply. 50 times 30 is 1500. 100 times x is 100x. And then we solve. We have 100x is equal to 1500. We divide. And again, we see x is equal to 15. Okay, so now we're going to find the percent of a number. 5% of 40. So again, we know of means to multiply. 5% we need to change to a decimal. So we move the decimal point 2 places to the left. We fill that gap with a 0. So that becomes 0.05 times 40. Okay, and if you multiply 0.05, 5% times 40, we get 2. So what that tells us is 5% of 40 is equal to 2. Now again, as our proportion, we know that we have 5 out of 100%, and we're trying to find out what amount is that 5%. So we put that over 40. Remember, it's always is over of. So then we cross multiply. 40 times 5 is 200. 100 times x is 100x. And so then we solve our equation. 100x is equal to 200. When we divide, we get x is equal to 2. Okay? I'm going to skip through this one. Alright, now we're going to fully translate the problem and then solve. Okay? We're looking for a percent. What percent? The word what lets us know that's where we're going to have a variable. We don't know what that is. So what percent? We'll say x. Of, remember of means to multiply. 220 is, now is when we're translating is like where an equal sign goes. Okay, so is means equals, and that's 88. Okay, so what percent of 220 is 88? We've now translated it, and we see this is just a one-step equation. Okay, we have x times 220. Okay, well now remember to undo multiplication, we have to divide. So we're going to divide by 220 on both sides. 220 divided by 220 is 1. 1 times x is x. 88 divided by 220 is going to give us a decimal. 88 divided by 220 is 0.4. But if we remember, we're not looking for a decimal, we're looking for what percent. To go from a decimal to a percent, we do the opposite. We move the decimal point 2 places to the right, and we fill any gaps with a 0. Okay, so 88 is 40% of 220. Now, if we wanted to change this into a proportion, I'm going to erase this x here. If we want this to be a proportion, remember it's is over of, is 88 over of 220. So 88 is what percent of 220? What? We don't know, so we filled out with a variable. And percents we always put over 100. So again, we cross multiply. 88 times 100 gives me 8,800. And that gives me 220x. When I set these equal to each other, 8,800 is equal to 220x. I divide by 220. When we divide, remember we can cancel out those zeros. So 880 divided by 22 is equal to 40. So again, with our proportion, it equals 40. Our proportion gives us our percent. We don't have to change anything there. So right here we have learned how to translate into an equation using of and is, or how to set up proportions to find percent of a number.